This is a summary of Dante's The Divine Comedy, Part 2, Purgatorio. Let's get this started with. Now, Purgatorio is one of the most interesting places you could ever be. How would you not want to be in Purgatorio? Going ahead, getting some brutal punishment. Of course, that is one aspect of Purgatorio that is quite intimidating and quite unnerving. But then again, this isn't hell, where you get eternal damnation with no water. In Purgatorio, at least you get water. Some of it makes you forget your sins, which is quite a good thing in some cases in Purgatorio. But the thing about Purgatorio is that here you get the most divine comedies. It's one of the great places you can ever be. You get damnation, yes, but you don't get eternal damnation. Instead, you get like several lifetimes worth of damnation, which will go ahead and cleanse you of your souls. Depending on how damned you are, well, you go ahead and you go through some suffering, otherwise known as in ancient literature damnation, to go ahead and purge your soul of the bad things so you can ascend to heaven. You will be in the earthly paradise, which is pretty much a great paradise, but it's nothing compared to actual heaven standards, so we'll get this started with. One thing that we must mention before we start this episode is that Purgatory itself is split into 7 sections. One, like here, it's split into these sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And these are the parts of the mountain. You start off in Anti-Purgatory, so technically you get 8 sections. And finally, the earthly paradise here too. I mean, I technically don't really want to count it because there's no suffering there. It's just like a paradise on earth as you wait to go into heaven. Like Inferno's hell, you go ahead and correspond your sin with a punishment. If you're too proud, well, then you go ahead and get a punishment. If you're the envious, well, yeah, you get the drill. The proud themselves are just like staying there. We start off in Anti-Purgatory, where everyone just like staying there until they're allowed to move up to the next rank. Here, usually they have to wait sometimes lifetimes worth of time, maybe about 70 years, before you go ahead and move up the ladder. But seriously though, after you go into Purgatory, your actual suffering starts. Now, Anti-Purgatory is more like Anti-Inferno, I suppose. You go ahead and you just wait there. You just wait. Yeah. And unlike Inferno though, you wait there temporarily. For Inferno, you stay there for eternity. Of course, unless the Big J comes down and brings some of you guys up with heaven with him, which means you can skip Purgatory entirely. Because, well, you're an Anti-Inferno. You're worthy of heaven. It's just that you were born before the Big J was, so you're technically older than him. Wow. Now let's start off with the actual first level of Purgatory. The proud. Now the proud themselves are great and all, but you go ahead and learn about things in a quite of a proud way. You go ahead and you do something that bows, like you carry big stones on your back, which goes and forces you to kneel down, and that leads you to, lose your pride and learn some humility. Of course, it's here that Dante earns 7 P's. Like, he gets 7 P's written on his forehead. I have to write them big because, well, unfortunately, my pen is too sick. But once he goes ahead, every time he moves up the mountain, one of those P's will be erased. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One of those P's will be erased. And as soon as he leaves the proud version, he becomes, well, he loses a P. Next up, he goes to the envious, who go ahead and have a pretty good punishment as well, too. Now, some of these are quite brutal as well, too. Some of the punishments, I won't go through each one detailedly, though, because there's actually no point. I think these are all self-explanatory. If you want to learn the punishments, well, don't come here for a summary. I'm terrible at summarizing. I'm great at analyzing, so. Anyways, back to the point. Here we go, though. All these punishments themselves are quite brutal as well, too. Some of them literally include people having their eyes sewn shut, which is which is kind of one of the reasons why there are no statues or hymns going ahead and showing how to be a good person. Because, well, you can't see anything. You can hear something, but you can't see anything. And obviously, you will go ahead and lose your stuff too. Now, the first 2 levels are like you love a little too pervertedly, while the other ones will be like loving, but then you go ahead and decide not act on it. You don't have enough love. And the last one is like you love a little too much. Okay, here's a pretty good example. The first 3 levels, like all of these 7 levels, all 7 levels are sins that have to do with love. Pretty much if your sin has something to do with love, well, then you go ahead and you're allowed up into Purgatory. But then again, of course, the love has to be mildly sinful, obviously. But firstly, so here's how it goes. The first 3 levels are all about perverted love. You go ahead, you love something, but then you want to love it forever and ever. You love it, but you like the image, you don't like it from your heart. And then our fourth one will be like love defective. You don't love enough, you don't love something enough, which is why it's called slothful. And now for the last 3 levels is that you love something a little too much. When you love something too much, obviously that's a sin. If you love someone a little too much, like your ex, they've already moved on, started lives that don't include you. You're the only one who's living in the past, so stop being nostalgic. But in the end, of course, it all works out, I suppose. Seriously though, love is quite somewhat of a theme here too. Then again, when you go to the earthly paradise, one of the bad things that happens is that, well, unfortunately for Dante, Virgil will no longer be able to accompany him back up to the rest of the paper. Like, back up to Purgatorio. Onwards, he can't go into Paradiso, because he's technically still needed in hell. He's technically belongs to anti-inferno. Like limbo. He deserves to be in limbo, and he's not allowed up into heaven because, well, he was born before the big J. So obviously he would go ahead and stop at the earthly paradise. He is technically, the rules don't say he isn't allowed to go to heaven, but the rules say he can't guide Dante. It doesn't mean he can't go back up there. But of course, now that the senpai is gone, we're gonna have to be stuck with a new senpai. And who's this new senpai, you might be wondering? Well, it's this one. It's the one and only Beatrice. And get this, Beatrice went ahead and kind of hates him too right now, because she said that as soon as she died, Dante, get this, fell in love with another woman. What? From all the poems that we read from Dante, it feels like he's not even married. He is married to another woman, and he barely knows Beatrice. He only officially met her two times in her life and his life. But you wouldn't know that from reading his poems. But now that you're in the earthly paradise, you are set for life there. You go ahead, you stay there, and you're like, great, I can go to heaven now. Yep, and now you're going for a guided tour towards heaven, and they shoot off into the heavens, aka the sky. And I will tell you what this Paradiso means in the next episode. So until then, peace. Bye bye. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Han Chun Sean.